stop doing that because it's such a gray area. And granted, this could be one of those type of episodes. But it made me think about myself. It made me think about different people I know and different people I've encountered in my lifetime. And because I've lived one of those lifestyles that I can honestly say I'm lucky to be alive today. More than 3 times over. And then again, that's neither here nor there. So I've met a lot of interesting people in my life, and I believe it's because I look at everybody as an individual. I really value people's individuality more than I do anything else. But I personally believe a lot of people have a sheeple effect. They have a sheeple mentality, meaning that they go with the crowd or whatever's trending. And I believe that goes hand in hand with stereotypes. Because often people will look at somebody either A, from where they're from, and that would be, again, environmental factors, or they will look at how they dress, or they'll look at their acquaintances and the people that, those people know. And they will start casting judgment on them. I believe it's actually scientifically proven that most people within the first 25 minutes of meeting somebody, within a conversation, has already formed their opinion about how this person is. But we got to ask ourselves if this is based on stereotypes or if this is how people are in general. I personally believe it's both. And if I sound like I'm rambling, I apologize. Like I said, it's kind of a gray area, so I'm trying to be careful about how I go about it. Because I'm going to talk about different people I personally have known and different things I've heard, if you're still with me. For instance, I'm going to give a good one. There's this Christian comedian named Mike Warnke in the 80s. He was pretty big. I believe he went crazy later on in his own way. But whenever he was doing his stand-up act, and he was a preacher, he had one in particular that was going on in Texas, and I remember watching a VHS cassette of it, and it was called Do You Hear Me Now, and it had like a TV with an antenna on it. And within this stand-up act, he started talking about how there was a group of Satanists that were trying to get into the church. And they even had their Baphomet necklaces around hanging off their clothing as well. And he said how the church members instantly wanted to lock the door, said, "We can't let them in here. We can't let them in here." Well, he said that the preacher came up and said, "You let them in here. Because what do you think we had this building built for?" And then he paused and he said, "Don't bother looking around." They took the hoods off and everybody started laughing. Now, even though I was in high school, that never left me. Because he made an interesting point right there on stereotypes. As soon as people recognized what these people were about, meaning their faith, every person in that church is ready to lock the doors and not let them in. Because of stereotypes. Now, by them wanting to lock the doors, if that preacher allowed that to happen, who knows what could happen after that? Because you don't know how they would react, and you don't know how everybody else would react long term. I'm using that as a very good example, I believe, on stereotypes. And there's some other ones I have too. Such as, I actually met a veteran one time, and he used to hang around on Birdcage in Citrus Heights, California. And he would be reading newspapers, and he would be smoking cheap cigarettes all the time. In fact, it was the one with the pyramid on it. The one with the pyramid on it. But anyways, when I first met him, he wouldn't directly tell me anything about himself. In fact, what it was is, I noticed he had an accent, and I asked him where he was from. And he said, "Guess where I'm from." And I said, "Well, just guessing by the way your accent is, I would say like Northern South European kind of, like Germany, Amsterdam, Netherlands, something like that. And he said it was actually German, and he was impressed. And over time is when I found out that he was actually a veteran of the Hitler Youth Corps. Now, I want to throw that one out there too. And how he said that most people, he's even been jumped before, even though he's old. Because, again, most people, as soon as they find that out, what's their first instinct? To attack. Because they don't know history. I know for a fact that they had no choice, that the people would be shot. Even the parents would be shot if they tried to stop their children from joining on the spot. That's just part of history, good or bad. So, granted, I wasn't mad at him. I said, I understand how the war was. And you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? I got to know him over a period of time. Now, he also told me something that had never left me, which was, he said, you need to quit hanging around these idiots because sooner or later they're going to get you caught doing something stupid. And he was talking about the crowd that he saw me running around with. Oh, like I said, over a period of time, I got to know him pretty well. Because it was like, it almost became like an every weekend thing to where I would sit down and I would talk with them and hang out and just smoke cigarettes and just talk about different things. Now, again, that's Stereotypes. Another example of that. I'm trying to think of some more real quick, just off the top of my head. I got another one for you. Now, again, I'm not justifying anybody's actions for anything. However, I know a kid, or he's not a kid anymore. Back in the day, he was around 16 years old. And this kid, I knew his older brother, basically. And he got into some trouble, so, you know what I mean? I let him look out, you know what I mean? I let him in the apartment, whatever. So, as he was sitting there sweating his ass off, by the way, again, this is in Citrus Heights. So, he's looking out the window. I said, knock it off. I'll go out there in a second. You know what I mean? I told him to hit this blunt because I had one rolled up already. So, you know what I mean? And when I came in, and he had his red bandana out, and he was kind of emotional, and he said something that kind of stuck with me. He said, you know, Mike, he said, I know how you are about the American flag. He said, and that's how I am about this flag. I said, how is that? Because he instantly had my attention at that point. And he said, you know, because I see my father die over this rag. I've seen my brother go down over this rag. He said, I see my cousin die over this rag. So that really, good or bad, it really put it into a different type of perspective for me, because at that point you start to understand that it's not just a criminal brotherhood, it's more than that. It could become a family thing. So that's what that taught me. Now again, that's another example of Stereotypes, is most people see him and they think gangbanger right away. They don't know that he was actually going to school full time, maintained a level grade point average in school. You know what I mean? He just happened to be running with, you know, and doing that. Now, I'm not justifying his decisions by any means. That's his own decisions, and whatever he's done in his lifetime, again, that's his own decisions. I can't be held accountable, just like he, you know what I mean? Only he can be held accountable for whatever he's done since I've met him. But again, that's another example of Stereotypes. Back when I knew him, nobody would know that. I'm going to give you another one, which is myself. So, when I was homeless in Marysville, this guy, I was going for a job application. I'd asked for a glass of water, and granted, I only had on a pair of green slacks, and one of the legs was actually ripped pretty bad from the bottom. And the rayon shirt that I got from Twin Cities Rescue Mission was actually sweat stained, because it was the only shirt I had at the time, you know? So I'm going in there thinking, surely I could get a job at McDonald's. No problem. You know what I mean? I had some issues and got out of the California Conservation Corps. But I was like, surely I could get a job at McDonald's. And as I filled it out, I asked for the hiring manager, and they got him. I gave him the application. And as I'm walking out the door, I'm hearing laughter as he's ripping up the application. So after I got pissed off, I went over to Mervin's, which is on East Street in Marysville, California, and I stole a whole outfit. I mean, I'm talking the whole works. And anyways, again, I'm not justifying my actions by any means. I've already dealt with the consequences of those actions. I've already dealt with that. So, again, I'm not justifying what I did, but I'm just stating the aftermath of it. So, the next day, with the suit that I managed to get, I should say, I went back to that same McDonald's and talked to that same manager and got the job. Now, he didn't remember me, but I remembered him. And over a period of time, he started liking me, and I reminded him. I said, "Do you remember that day that guy came in with an application and you ripped it up?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "I was that guy." And that's when I quit, and I started working somewhere else. Now, again, that's another example of stereotypes. He took the way I look as some guy that was a bum off the streets. Why would I take a chance on him? Well, I proved to be one of the best workers they had, because originally they had me as a fry cook, and by the end of it, I was a maintenance person. You know what I mean? So, basically what that means is I worked my way up around. You know what I mean? So, to all the different positions. So, honestly, apologize for the noise in the background. My wife's watching TV. Anyways, so these are examples of stereotypes to me and how people look at different things. Because there's another example. Another person I know would say his first name is Rich. He was telling me back in Antioch when he was a general manager. You know, I mean, I've been out there visiting, and he was telling me this African American guy was trying to get a job, and he had a suit on, and he had his hair done, meaning he had it pulled back, and but his pants were sagging a little bit, and because he didn't have a belt. He said he talked to him, looked at his application, noticed that he just got out of jail, and he said, "I just threw it away." I got mad. I said, "Why would you do that?" And here's the reason why. Because I know for a fact that person, if he would have taken a chance on him, could have proven to be one of the best employees that he ever had. If he would have just given a chance. I also know that action could have had a negative consequence as well. Meaning that guy could turn around and lose hope after that. You get what I'm saying? Because Rich decided to cast judgment on somebody based on the way he looked. He took it as, why would I even bother hiring you when you just got out of jail and you can't even have your pants pulled up above your waist? That was his reaction to a stereotype. Do you get what I'm saying? So, these are examples of different stereotypes. Now, I have a friend of mine personally that I know, when he got out, he was actually doing really good. Somebody took a chance on him and he got a job. He ended up losing a job over a period of time. And he actually bounced off, bounced back and forth. And he ended up landing on doing something really well. In fact, he was one of my best friends. His album was actually going to drop. And he was at a release party. In fact, he had just opened up a grill shop too, by the way. Come to think about it. And he had called me from this party and said, "Man, I want to stop by and show you my new album that's fixing to drop. I want to stop by." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, swing by." And he got a ride home with somebody who he thought was cool. But he ended up dying that night in the police chase. But anyways, these are all examples of stereotypes, because I feel like his life in general, if he would have been given more chances instead of people casting judgments on him, which is normally the case, he had that hip-hop swag to him, the grill, the hair pulled back, the whole nines, dreads, and all that. So instantly people were like, why would I hire you? It was just a thing. So this brings you to stereotypes all the time, because you even have stereotypes still to this day about the way people look in this time period we're living in. And we gotta realize that everybody is unique and everybody's individuals. No two people are actually going to fully look at everything the exact same. I really don't think that that is an actual possibility. Um, I think that people in general can click and can get along and agree on a lot of things. And to the point to where some, I mean, I'm not going to go into that actually right now, but they could agree on a lot of things and see eye to eye on a lot of principles, and yet at the same time completely disagree about a lot of other things. Um, it could be neither here or there, but I do find stereotypes actually play a lot into society in a bad way. Because nobody really knows what people are going through. For instance, I actually know somebody who finally, after years of struggling, I mean, she was living in her car, and years of living in her car, by the way, before she finally managed to get somebody to hire her. And now she's actually doing really really well. But the point is, she went through dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of interviews, and people just assumed things about her based on the way she looked, but she couldn't help it because there's only so much that she could do in certain situations. And I know this from personal experience, such as, again, back when I was on the streets, I would have to, their Taco Bell in Marysville, California, it was one of those Taco Bells that you can actually lock the bathroom from the inside. And what I would do is I would go to the Dollar Tree and get whatever I needed to get, you know what I'm saying? The deodorant, whatever. And I would go to that Taco Bell and I would lock the bathroom, and I would actually clean myself with the paper towels. You know what I'm saying? And do the best I can to make myself look better to go look for work and shit. Put it like that. So I know you can't ever cast judgment on somebody based on the way they look, because if you do that, you never know. You never really know who somebody is until you give them the chance to show you who they really are. Basically, is what I'm getting at. There's a lot of people, for example, who are into true crime, who wear all kinds of things. You know what I'm saying? Some of them are business owners. Some of them run their own shows. Some of them are writers. Some of them are painters. Some of them are attorneys. Some of them are all kinds of things. You just don't know. For instance, your doctor that you go see every single day, at the end of the day, right? When he's done seeing all his patients, he could very well go home and break out his bong and start hitting it. You would never know. And when he's doing it, he could be covered in tattoos too. You know what I mean? Because you don't see him, and you would never know that. You would never know that he's bumping like some kind of weird trippy music in the background. You know, because he doesn't show you that, because he knows that if he showed you that, that could damage his career, right? Why? Why do I say that? Because that brings me into stereotypes again, and how stereotypes is a bad thing. This is why I actually stand against stereotypes. I don't like stereotypes. I think stereotypes are like the worst thing ever to happen to society, because it puts everybody into the category, and it puts everybody into a certain bracket, so to speak. Because instead of trying to figure out who they are, you just decide you're this, or you got this going on, so you're crazy, or you look this way, so you're a Satanist. You look this way, so you're a game banger. You look this way, so you're into heavy metal. You look this way, so you're into like witchcraft. You look this way, so you must roll around with druggies. Do you get what I'm saying? Everybody is running around society casting pre-decision notions. Casting judgment. Sorry about the camera. So we got to learn to break free of stereotypes. This is something that I'm actually standing for. I am actually against stereotypes on every level. Um, big or small, you know what I mean? Crazy or not crazy, out there or not out there, Joe Bob, you know what I mean? Or backwoods Billy Bob, you know what I mean? Whoever down the block in the hood, I don't really care what you're about. I don't care where you're from. Or, you know what I mean? Any of that. I don't, you know what I mean? For instance, like a lot of people will use people's last names as clout. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't never know this was a thing until I moved to smaller towns, though. You get what I'm saying? I grew up in like bigger cities, so everybody looked at everybody as an individual per se. You know what I mean? Unless you were like a millionaire or you know what I mean, like a celebrity or some shit like that. Everybody just kind of like you were your own fucking person. Nobody gave a shit who you were, or you know what I mean. Unless you were like in a gang or something, that was a thing. You know what I mean? But for the most part, yeah. So when I moved to smaller communities, I realized that a lot of people will try to use last names as a thing. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you didn't know about blah 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 last name or blah 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 last name. If you did, blah 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 blah. And I still have my city attitude is I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? What's that mean to me? You're saying it as though it's like Donald Trump, or if it's like fucking the Maloof brothers, if it's like a Gambino, you know what I'm saying? If it's like a Shakur or some crap like that, you know what I'm saying? Like, so what? Because I still look at everybody as an individual. Like, show me the person. What are they about? You know what I mean? You know, that's how I look at it. Because nobody is actually who that person. Everybody is unique. Like again, I'm going to go back to that repeatedly. I know it's annoying. I'm going to go back to that repeatedly. Everybody is an individual, and I look at it as individuality. I value people's individual personalities more than I do looks and appearances. And this goes with everything, and that's throughout my whole life. You know what I mean? I've always been that way. I don't give a fuck how you look. I don't give a fuck where you're from. Now, if you're talking to me about how, I've lived in such and such country, or if you're somebody who's actually from a different country, like I know people that's from like, Egypt, Ireland, the UK, Scotland. I'm not going to say your name off every freaking country, but all over the place. And that's cool. That's completely different. That's not what I'm saying. But I value it, like, because that's talking about a whole culture. You know what I mean? That's completely different to me. Again, I value people's personalities and their individuality more than I do anything else. I don't care, you know what I mean, about any of that shit. Tell me what you've actually done or show me what you're about, and that's how I will perceive you. You know what I mean? My perception of people, again, is based solely on them as an individual with how they view things. You know what I'm saying? Because again, that's just how I am, and that's how I think most people should be, because that gives people more freedom that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, to be who they are. I think a lot of people are depressed and angry because they feel suppressed. You know what I'm saying? They feel like they have to fit in a certain category, even around their family, which is effed up. No, I'm not even going to open up that can of worms. Really, I'm not. I'm not even going to go there. All I'm going to say is it's a fucked up situation. You know what I'm saying? Because again, everybody is an individual, and that's what should count. Is, you know what I'm saying? And nobody views things exactly the same. That's why people have arguments. You get what I'm saying? Because one person's going, that's a good way to look at it. Check this way out. I don't like that way. Well, fuck your way. You know what I'm saying? Hold on a second. So again, this brings me back to all that. So it brings me back to stereotypes. It brings me back to individuality. It brings me back to all of that kind of stuff. Because I think people are capable of doing way more than what people are doing. There are a lot of people out there. Sorry, my thing is actually giving me a warning. So I'm going to actually have to cut this short. But anyways, this has been Mike for Working Class Thoughts. Everybody have a good night. This has been one on stereotypes and individuality. Everybody have a good night. Peace, love, and good vibes.